For more analysis, we are joined by Mrs. Najat Saliba, a Lebanese parliament member from Beirut, and we are also joined by Brigadier, a strategic military expert from Beirut. Welcome, both of you. And I want to start with Mrs. Saliba. What are the key factors, in your own opinion, that have led to the recent progress in ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hezbollah?
Good evening to you and to your viewers. Thank you for inviting me. There are several factors. The first and most important one is that Israel was able to push through the southern Lebanon border, and perhaps this will satisfy their goals, although their goals was not clear from the beginning. They said that they wanted to do an incursion, although it has become a complete invasion and mass destruction of buildings and infrastructure of Lebanon.
Yes.
So perhaps they have seen that this is now what they have accomplished can secure their borders, and this would be enough for them. However, I want to say that there are some articles or some points that they have enforced or they have insisted on having, mainly the freedom to invade Lebanon at any moment if they feel that their security is threatened. This remains a very, very important point to continue to be discussed, and definitely this is something that has to be discussed also among all Lebanese parties, because this touches on the sovereignty of the country. The second point that is also very important is the return of all people who left their homes forcefully to go back to their homes and be able to live in dignity and peacefully. We tend to emphasize this point extremely because if we were talking about a just ending, this ending has to be equal or just for both parties, including the return of the civilians to their homes and lands.
Brigadier El-Tanir, what are the key military challenges in ensuring the withdrawal of Israeli forces from southern Lebanon, and how might these affect the implementation of the proposed ceasefire agreement?
Good evening, and thanks for having me on your channel. Please
Interrupting with you, Mr. Tanir, so I will go back to you, Mrs. Saliba. Now, you were talking about a very important point, which is the return of the civilians to their homeland. Are these areas totally destructed? Have been they totally wiped out of the map, or are there areas that the civilians could actually return to?
The question whether their homes are up or down, this is not the important thing. The important thing is that they are free to go back, and most importantly is that they own the land. That's their land. They are free to decide on how to live in this land and how to cultivate the agricultural field and live there with high dignity. This is the most important thing. The land is ours, and the land is for the people who own it, and we want those people to be able to go back and reconstruct, perhaps rebuild what they have lost, but most importantly is to go back and cultivate their lands and live off of their lands. That's the most important part. It's not about the home or the structure of the houses. It is more about the ownership of this land and the right for them to occupy or to go back and live on this land.
Okay, so what implications could arise if the ceasefire negotiations fail, especially regarding the potential escalations in violence or broader regional conflicts?
Well, apparently, it seems like before we went into the studio, they have announced that the ceasefire is going to be announced at 10 p.m. tonight. And it's going to be effective as of tomorrow morning. We hope between now and then that hell does not break loose on our heads, because this is what happened like an hour ago, when they decided to bomb a whole neighborhood in 2 minutes. And at the same time, they have struck a very, very densely populated area with no prior alarm. And this has led to many deaths. And also, we learned that there has been a huge bombing on the Rashidi camp, the Palestinian camp, and this is going to lead, or have led, to many casualties. So we hope that by the time they announce the ceasefire, like they said, at 10 p.m. tonight, and by the time it takes into effect, they restrain from continuing the mass destruction and the mass killing that they have done for the past 2 months. So, Netanyahu is really a criminal that have caused too many atrocities and too many they have killed too many innocent civilians everywhere here in Lebanon and in Gaza. And we do hope that this massacre stops as soon as possible.
Definitely. And we have Brigadier Tanir back with us again, joining us from Beirut. Sir, what are the key military challenges in ensuring the withdrawal of Israeli forces from southern Lebanon, and how might these affect the implementation of the proposed ceasefire agreement?
Oh, I have a problem with how it's done.
Sir, can you hear me? Mr. Tanir, can you hear me? I think we lost the connection with Brigadier Tanir again, so I'll go back to Mrs. Saliba. How do the roles of the US and France in facilitating the ceasefire negotiations actually influence the potential for a successful agreement, especially considering the recent tensions over the ICC arrest warrants for Israeli officials?
Well, thank you for this question, and we don't know whether, and we don't want to put any doubt in the transparent process of the ICC, but apparently the United States was able to convince the Israeli government that to include France in the role of observant over the implementation of the UN resolution and the ceasefire deal. We do hope that those two countries and other countries who will be contributing to this role will do a just and a job with high equity, meaning that they don't prefer one side over the other. We really want eventually that this nightmare is over and the truce would lead to a complete ceasefire and a complete agreement between the two parties. I think they have a huge role to play. At the same time, they really need to be able to support the Lebanese army forces to take its role and to implement all the responsibilities upon them, so that the sovereignty of the country is withheld very high and the state of Lebanon regains its trust and its confidence within the international community. And we do hope that this whole ordeal will also help in filling up the vacancy, meaning that the presidential vacancy, and we will convene as soon as possible, like immediately, to elect a president so the state regains its structures as well. So not only its confidence and its trust, its implementation through the Lebanese army forces of high security in the south and all over Lebanon, but at the same time, we really need to regain a state structure, starting with the president and then moving on to an active ministerial cabinet.
Mm-hmm. So, Mrs. Saliba, in your own opinion, what are the most likely scenarios for both parties if the ceasefire is successful or if it collapses, and what factors will influence these outcomes?
There are many challenges on the ground. From the Lebanese part, there is, like I said, the building of the state, the building of the confidence, the support that is highly needed for the Lebanese army forces. And I'm saying the political support for the Lebanese army forces so that they do their job, because they are capable and they have the know-how, they have the people, they have the army, the number, they have proven time and time again that whenever they are needed, they will deliver. All they need is that all political parties would rally behind them so that they are effective on the ground. That's a very big challenge internally. And the second challenge is that we really need to convene immediately to elect a president, so that we really need to tell the whole community, Arabic and international community, that we're ready to take on the matters in our own hands. And we need from the Arab communities to support us to implement the Ta'if agreement as fast as possible, because this also has defaulted based for several years, and it's imminent that we start applying the Ta'if agreement. From the part of Israel, we don't know whether they have plans for the whole region, and whether this truce agreement is going to be fake or not, because trust in the Israeli government is very, very low. Yes. And we hope that they hold tight to their promises, and we will withdraw from southern Lebanon, and this would allow the Lebanese people to go back to their lands and live peacefully.
Hopefully. Now, what are the key issues that remain unresolved in the current ceasefire negotiations between Israel and Hezbollah, and how might these impact the final agreement?
I don't think there are issues between Israel and Hezbollah, because Hezbollah has promised through the speaker who was that they will withdraw behind the Litani. The main problem is what's going to happen north of Litani, not south of Litani. And this is an internal matter that will also create a lot of challenges internally. And this is what I meant. Hezbollah has to know that he can, it's a party that is welcome to do political work, but I think enough is enough. We paid very dearly in terms of having a small country, a small state within a state. We don't want to be proxies to any other in the region or internationally. We really need to strengthen the state and strengthen the army, and we want one army, the Lebanese army forces that is able to hold and to protect the sovereignty of the country. So internally, we really need to make sure that Hezbollah does not do this again. They do not strengthen a state within a state. They are welcome to be doing political work like every other political party, but not to repeat what they have done, because what they have done before in terms of arming themselves and creating all this infrastructure of an army within the state has really cost Lebanon, the citizens and the residents of Lebanon dearly, and this is, I think, enough.
Yes.
For us.
I think we succeeded to bring Brigadier Al-Tanir back on the phone. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening to you. Sir, what are the key military challenges in ensuring the withdrawal of Israeli forces from southern Lebanon, and how the ceasefire agreement?
And as a matter of fact, we don't trust our enemy, and especially Netanyahu, and we are afraid that, as happened in Gaza Strip, will happen in South Lebanon. As you heard, every minute at the last 3 hours, Every minister of the enemy cabinet have their own conditions, and I think they are going to confuse all the people in the world that Lebanese people don't want to implement the 1701 resolution.
So, Tanir, can you elaborate more on the significance of the proposed 60-day truce and the withdrawal of forces from southern Lebanon? How does this align with previous agreements or resolutions?
I don't know why they put 60 days. These 60 days is like a trap. It's like a trap. I don't know why. And within these 60 days, what we will do? Is there an implementation for our army? Is there a withdrawal from everyone unarmed, even party Hezbollah? That must be solved before doing anything.
So
how Israeli troops will stay in that area and our soldiers will implement and will take their places there, and how can the unarmed people from Hezbollah can withdraw to the south of Litani?
Okay. So, Brigadier Tanir, how could the successful implementation of this ceasefire agreement affect the broader regional stability, especially in relation to the ongoing conflict in Gaza and tensions with other regional actors?
I think there must be a real... Till now, we don't know anything about the agreement. Did you see any agreement? Did you saw what articles there? I don't know. And now we didn't know anything, only hear from many resources and sources about that. As a matter of fact, I'm telling you, there must be Lebanon or the occupied area that they are doing nowadays, and after that, the Lebanese army has the ability to maintain its work and to implement through all the region.
Well, I would like to thank both of you, Mrs. Najat Aoun Saliba, the Lebanese parliament member, and also Brigadier Taqiyuddin Al-Tanir, the strategic military expert. Thank you very much for your valuable insights.